The terror at 35,000 feet. Imagine you are a 32-year-old man named David. It is a rainy Tuesday in late November, and you are standing in the middle of O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. You are exhausted. You have just finished a grueling 4-day business trip, and all you want to do is get home to your wife and your 2-year-old daughter in Seattle. You look up at the monitors and see your flight, Flight 714. It is scheduled to depart at 10:45 p.m. It is the red eye. You know the vibe of these flights, everyone is quiet, the lights are dimmed, and the cabin feels like a floating tomb moving through the night sky. You board the plane. You are sitting in seat 14A, right by the window, just behind the wing. To your right, in 14B, there is a man in a charcoal suit. He looks like a typical businessman, maybe 50 years old. He has an open briefcase on his lap, but he isn't working. He is just staring straight ahead at the back of the seat in front of him. He doesn't say hello. He doesn't even acknowledge you. The plane pushes back from the gate at exactly 11:12 p.m. You watch the raindrops race across your window as the turbines begin to whine. Soon, you are hurtling down the runway, and that familiar pressure pushes you back into your seat as the nose lifts. You climb through the thick, gray Chicago clouds, and suddenly, everything is smooth. You are above the storm. The moon is bright, reflecting off the white clouds below like a frozen ocean. At 12:15 a.m., the flight attendants finish the drink service. The "fasten seatbelt" sign dings and turns off. Most people immediately recline their seats and pull their blankets up to their chins. The cabin lights fade to a deep, ghostly blue. David closes his eyes, trying to catch some sleep. But about 20 minutes later, at 12:37 a.m., he feels a strange vibration. It isn't turbulence. Turbulence is shaky, bouncy. This is a rhythmic thud. Thump. 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 It sounds like it is coming from right outside his window. David opens his eyes and looks at the man in the charcoal suit. The man hasn't moved. He is still staring at the seat in front of him. His hands are gripped so tightly around the handles of his briefcase that his knuckles are turning white. David looks out the window. At first, he sees nothing but the dark wing and the red strobe light flashing, blink, blink, blink. But then, he sees it. On the surface of the wing, there is something that shouldn't be there. It looks like a hand. A pale, long-fingered hand reaching up from the underside of the wing, gripping the metal flap. David freezes. His heart starts to hammer against his ribs. He thinks, no, that is impossible. We are traveling at 500 miles per hour. The temperature out there is 60 degrees below zero. Nothing can survive out there. He blinks, shaking his head. He looks again. The hand is gone. He lets out a long breath, whispering to himself that it was just a trick of the light and his own exhaustion. But just as he starts to relax, he hears a sound that makes his blood turn to ice. It isn't a thump. It is a scratch. Scree. Something is metal on metal scratching right against the glass of his window. David slowly turns his head. There, pressed against the thick plexiglass, is a face. But it isn't a human face. It is wide, with skin the color of a wet sidewalk. It has no nose, just 2 slits. And its eyes are massive, milky white orbs with no pupils. The creature is staring directly at David. It isn't trying to break in. It is just watching him. David jumps back, slamming into the man in the charcoal suit. Did you see that? Look! Out the window! David shouts, his voice cracking with pure terror. The man in the suit slowly turns his head. He looks at the window. The creature is still there. It peels back its thin lips to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. The man in the suit looks back at David. His expression doesn't change. He doesn't scream. He doesn't gasp. He simply whispers, "It's been there since we left the gate, David." David's stomach drops. What? You saw it? Why didn't you say anything? The man leans in closer. His breath smells like old paper and copper. Because if you don't acknowledge them, they usually stay on the outside. But you looked, David. You made eye contact. Suddenly, the plane takes a violent dip. The oxygen masks drop from the ceiling with a loud clack. The fasten seatbelt sign starts chiming rapidly, ding, ding, ding. People start waking up, screaming, grabbing for their masks. Over the intercom, the captain's voice comes on. But it isn't a normal announcement. The captain sounds like he is crying. This is the flight deck. We have an unidentified internal breach. Please, if you can hear this, stay in your seats. Do not look at the person sitting next to you. If you have a cell phone, dial 911, even though it won't connect. Just keep dialing. The line cuts out into static. David is hyperventilating. He looks down the aisle. The flight attendants are gone. The galley curtains are ripped shredded. And then he notices the silence. All the passengers who were screaming just seconds ago, they have stopped. David looks to his left, down the row. Every single passenger is sitting perfectly still. Their oxygen masks are dangling in front of them, but they aren't putting them on. They are all staring straight ahead, just like the man in the charcoal suit. He looks back at his window. The creature is gone. But then he hears a sound from above. Thump. 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 Something is walking on the roof of the plane. David grabs his phone. It is 1:14 a.m. He tries to dial 911, but the screen is just flickering with static. He looks at the man in the charcoal suit, desperate for help. We have to do something, David whispers. The man finally smiles. It is a slow, wide smile that reaches too far across his face. There is nothing to do, David. We reached our destination a long time ago. We just haven't landed yet. David looks out the window one last time. He expects to see the clouds or the moon. Instead, he sees nothing. No stars. No lights from cities below. Just an endless, oily black void. He looks at the flight map on the small screen on the back of the seat. The little airplane icon isn't moving towards Seattle. It is spinning in a circle in the middle of a blank white space on the map. The altitude reading says, 35,000 feet. It stays at 35,000. It doesn't go up. It doesn't go down. David realizes with a jolt of horror that the engines are silent. He can't hear the roar of the wind. The plane is just, hanging there. Suspended in the dark. The scratching starts again. But this time, it isn't coming from the window. It's coming from the floorboards beneath David's feet. A pale, long-fingered hand pushes up through the carpet between David's shoes. Then another. David tries to scream, but his voice is gone. He looks around the cabin, and he sees the other passengers finally moving. They aren't standing up. They are turning their heads, all at once, to look at him. Their eyes have turned into those same milky white orbs. The man in the charcoal suit leans over and whispers in David's ear, "Welcome to the Red Eye, David. We've been waiting for a new passenger for a very, very long time." The clock on David's phone flips to 1:15 a.m. And then, the lights go out. If you enjoyed this dive into the strange, dark, and mysterious, please gently pat the like button on the back and tell it that everything is going to be okay, before locking it in a room with a broken flight simulator.